Welcome. It's been a while. It has been too long, Cheryl. Welcome. Oh, it feels good. Feels good to be back. We are in the bearded corner, if you will. Obviously, nothing hanging on the walls yet. Brand new place, new house. Who dis? Is the echo too much? The frets. It's. We're moving. That's where I've been. So it's nice to be back, and got a new house. Yes, the beard lives. Got a new house, new place to live in. Got a new home. Upgrade. Certainly a huge upgrade. J-Dub, welcome. Not obnoxious. We will be getting plenty of things to cover that. I'm sure I will also be able to talk the wife into getting foam to also limit the echo as much as possible. We'll see how that goes. It is obviously a work in progress. Oh, we'll get the prettiest of foam. I'll probably actually end up spray painting it, making it nice and pretty, making it America flavored. The new place is amazing, just downright amazing. I know I shared a picture for some people in some of the private groups that I'm in, and it's truly amazing. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the things that I've been missing, or that we haven't gotten to speak about with each other, because obviously I wasn't here. Yes, the neighborhood is fantastic. And so there's two funerals. There was some monkeying business, some monkeying around, some race baiting. There were some economic situations and everything else. So let's get into this. So we had two big funerals this week. One funeral was the now that I was going to talk about her, Aretha Franklin. With that wasn't her name. Somebody remind me her name. This is horrible that I'm blanking on this. Cheeky monkey. I feel like the lighting is a lot better in here as well, so I'm excited for that. But anyway, so there was the funeral with the woman, the singer, and a lot of controversy spewed up from that. Ben K, welcome. Aretha Franklin. It was Aretha Franklin. Okay, thank you. So Aretha Franklin's lineup of people sitting there in that particular row with Bill Clinton, with Farrakhan and everything else. It wasn't a good lineup. Mutton Man, welcome. Was not a good lineup by any means, right? You had a guy that was pretty apparently should be one of the people being denounced from the Me Too movement. You had an open anti-Semitic person, anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan. You had a race baiter, tax evading, race baiting individual. It sucks. Yes, I was going to get onto that as well. I can't believe I am having so many name blanks right now. But the Reverend, if you will, he was sitting there in the front line. So you just had like a lineup of hatred that the left would normally hate, but because they say they're on the left, they're accepted, they're loved, and they're tolerated. And that was a huge issue. And then of course Ariana Grande, right, came up and she sang a song. One controversy you have to laugh at, and another controversy, which of course is horrible, in which the pastor was standing up there with her and was obviously like groping her from the side and was like getting some side boob action, and it's despicable. And he's already came out and apologized for it. People are calling for his head because he should. His actions were right in line with what the Me Too movement was against. But the other part, in which I think was. Yes, it was a racially driven. It was a joke of poor humor, but some people like the poor humor, and the more sensitive they become, sometimes that makes them comedic gold. In which he said Ariana Grande is on the Taco Bell menu. Of course, there were people that took that to the extreme and said, look, he's into child slavery or sex slavery or whatever kind of sex trafficking, if you will. She's on the menu, and therefore, people have gone to the extreme. Yes, it was an off-color joke. Yes, it was taking her name, Ariana Grande, in playing on that. Yeah, it was bad. But the bigger focus of that was him groping her at somebody's funeral. Stefan, welcome. That's something that if you believe in an afterlife, if you're a religious person, if you believe in even if you're an atheist and you just believe, hey, look, that is what somebody owns, and that is their body, and you are coming to celebrate that body, you shouldn't be doing something so disgusting, so repugnant as touching another person in a disgusting manner while celebrating that person's life. We're supposed to be cherishing that person's life. And that's clearly was not a value being held throughout this week. Segueing into John McCain's funeral, that was a whole nother level of just disgusting rhetoric. John McCain, of course, we knew that John McCain was not in favor of President Trump. He didn't invite him. He didn't invite Sarah Palin, who was his VP candidate from the 2008 election, 2008 or 2012. I forgot which. I apologize. But disavowing her and disinviting her created enough of a controversy. So the two of them should not be there, right? If somebody, I don't care what their motivation was, if they say, don't come to my funeral, don't go to their funeral. That also means that when you go to their funeral, you don't bring that person by talking about them, by just every single word that you speak has to somehow say, look, John McCain was better than Trump. John McCain did this, and that's undermining what Trump's agenda was, right? America was always great because of McCain, right? When you have every bit of your rhetoric, every bit of your speech, every bit of your eulogy in a pointed direction towards, hey, this is Trump here, and I'm bringing Trump to this funeral. The family of John McCain, especially Meghan McCain, who is a part of this, should be ashamed of themselves for allowing rhetoric like that. Whether you agree with John McCain or you disagree with John McCain, whether you liked his politics, whether you liked him as a person, it doesn't matter, right? We should at least be able to respect the ceremony of celebrating someone's life. And that was something that they could not do. They could not cherish the man enough. They had to downplay other people in order to do that. And it's things like that. When your entire life, when your celebration of life is being drowned with politics, was there really much to celebrate in that stance? Was there really much to celebrate that? Because people saw you purely as somebody to go for. And obviously, with the end of John McCain's life, he was definitely anti-Trump in a lot of ways. He flip-flopped on a lot of things. Welcome in, man. There was a lot of that where John McCain was against Trump. But if that's all that you can celebrate when John McCain left, you are missing out on who John McCain was. I disagree vehemently with John McCain. He was a warmonger. He was a war hawk. But if I were to go and speak at his funeral, I wouldn't be speaking ill of him, and I wouldn't be speaking ill of another. Like, does that make sense? Am I speaking off in another world when I talk about this stuff? Like, if I was to be invited or to be requested to speak at someone's funeral, even if I didn't like them, I would respect them enough as a person to go and speak positive about some aspect of them. I agree that John would, but as principled people, as people who should care more about the ceremony than caring about the will of that person, right? You can respect the wishes of a person and also respect the ceremony itself. And between those two guides, you can fulfill the wishes of both. And that was something that they were unable to accomplish in any capacity, right? We had George Bush, we had Obama, we had Meghan McCain. The three of them Definitely said some things that John McCain would have liked, but it didn't go in the way of the whole scheme, if you will. So that made my blood boil a little bit. That made me get a little bit frustrated. That definitely perked up my ears. It did seem a little bit staged, but at the same time, the entire world of politics, I guess the more that you get involved into politics, the more that you dive down deep into things, right? The more that you want to portray everything as being staged. And I think that we need to pull back on that. We need to fight against the idea that everything was staged and just understand that some people are extremely politically motivated and everything will fall in line with the politics that they see or that they want, right? And I'm getting off the rails a little bit here, and I know this, but it's something that I've been noticing lately. Some of the people I've been associated with, some of the people that I talk with frequently, they struggle with trying to borderline push a conspiracy, right? Whether you're pro-Trump or against Trump, if something happens, then it's obviously against or pro-Trump, right? We have to understand that things can be dissected, things can be pulled apart, and you can have two separate entities that are not connected to each other, even if in both entities it combines the same people, right? A good example of this would be, right, a family business. A family business means that when you are in business, you are business people. When you are outside of business, you are family people, right? Same people, same exact people, but you can have them separated. And that can also happen for events themselves. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is very tight with psychology. You're absolutely right, Ben K. His comment was, the more I learn about politics, the more I realize how closely connected it is to psychology. That's exactly what politics is. Politics is the idea of being able to control people. That is the basis of what politics is how do you control people? You have people that say, look, people are unable to control themselves. They're unable to be compassionate. They're unable to help out one another. And so that's why we need a big government. You have other people who say, I don't know how to run your life, but I'm not going to run your life. I'm going to let you run your own. And so those are the two extreme parts of the spectrum. And of course you have people all throughout that. How you argue your point to move masses. Exactly. And so that's the idea, right? Is the basis behind each side. You also take that and you say, look, this side is the compassionate side. This is the side that needs to use compassion, that needs to use the morality, or not necessarily morality, but go to the ends and make sure that they justify the means, right? You use that. And then the other side, right? Here's where it's fallen. This is where it's failed. This is the problems within these systems. And so I want to stop these systems from continuing to fail us so that we can find better ideas. And so you even within the spectrum, right, is how do we lay this out and how do we actually convey that message? And yes, it is absolutely 100% a psychological thing. Politics, psychology, math, those three things are everywhere. Yeah, no, new house, who dis. We'll be hanging up some stuff. We'll be getting some echo silencing equipment as well. Am I wrong for feeling McCain's funeral should have been longer than Aretha? It really doesn't matter. I mean, in the long run, Aretha Franklin definitely reached millions of more people than John McCain did. John McCain was a political person. And as involved with politics as we are, we have to understand that we are a part of the minority in this country. Do you notice, like, nobody votes? Is less than half of the population votes each year. It is extremely small population that is actually involved with politics. And so, but everybody knows music. Everybody can hear a song, whether it's in the genre that they like, and they will have songs that catch on to them. Republicans are the compassionate side as far as personal compassion goes. So that's a debatable topic, right? Which side is the more compassionate side? And compassion is obviously a very subjective term. And so we can dive down into that, the weeds of that, and talk about the compassion. The compassion is a huge, huge thing. Republicans give more to charity, yes, and that's only whenever you include religious entities as Republicans, which generally it is. But if you take out church givings, then it's actually somewhat similar, I believe, if I remember the numbers correctly. I looked that up like 6 or 7 months ago. Compassion is subjective. And who do you direct it towards? Exactly right. Compassion is subjective. Constitutional compassion means voluntary charity. Exactly. So true. So those two funerals, I really, looking at those, and I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't tweet about it. I didn't make Facebook posts about it. I just let them go. And I wanted to sit and think about it and mull it over. And I saw people, and they were just continuing to make it political beyond what it already was. And I don't think that that's necessarily the right answer. I'm not telling you all how to live your lives, how to view things. But when it comes to that, right? Whenever somebody says, hey, let's make this political, whether it's through directly saying it or indirectly by continuing to politicize it, let it go. Shake it off. You'll be better off, right? Don't let somebody's death be politicized. Now you can take their office, right? We have to disconnect everything. Disconnect literally everything from life. So John McCain, he was a person. John McCain's seat was a Senate seat. Right, that's completely different. That seat is part of politics. We can politicize that. We can talk about actually getting a Republican in the seat. We could talk about actually having a conservative come into that seat. We can talk about actually having somebody who cares about smaller government or about getting rid of Obamacare. We could talk about that. But you can talk about the seat, but try not to talk about the person and or politicize them in every aspect. Because there was a time in which John McCain wasn't political, and hopefully one day he will no longer be a political influence in this country, because honestly his views were pretty egregious for the most part, other than when it came to torture of prisoners. That I agree with him on that. But when it came to war, he was definitely kind of a war hawk. He definitely was one of the ones to push for it and advocate for it. So that was definitely something I disagreed with. So, and Aretha Franklin, don't grope women. Stop groping women. I don't know why we need to put this message out. I don't know why this needs to be a PSA. Don't put your hand on another woman. Can that be the gist of it, or do we actually have to get into it and say, if she doesn't consent to it, if she doesn't actually make a move and make you feel welcome on touching her tits, don't touch her tits? Is this difficult? The pastor, isn't that amazing? After we've been going through the Catholic Church for the last couple of weeks, the Catholic Church has been under heavy fire for molestation and for touching of children and for touching of boys. Then now we have another pastor coming out and touching a small girl or a small woman. She is the size of a child, so I don't know if he got confused or how that worked, but it's just disgusting to see that. If millennials boobs. I promise not to touch her tits. See, Doc G's a good guy. Doc G's a good guy. Coming out here and promising not to touch her tits. Titty touch. It's a simple idea, right? Don't touch people that don't want you touching them. If they don't give you an invitation to touch them, don't touch them. If I have property and I don't tell you you can touch it, don't touch it. I own property of myself. I own stuff. That stuff, don't touch it unless I tell you I can touch it. Don't touch me unless I tell you I can touch me. When the backlash comes from you touching my stuff, don't try to play victim. It is your fault entirely. Boogie Bumper, welcome in, man. Oh, man. Welcome back. Thank you. I should have been playing Mace. Welcome back. Beardo. It's Beardo now, not even Beardo. I like it. It's just disgusting the way that happened. And I can't believe that a simple message such as don't touch a woman's tits still needs to be said in 2018. Ben K is warning Boogie not to touch his tits. Yes. Thank you, Ben K, making it loud and clear. I also, here's where you guys may hate me. If you guys been following the tariff wars, this was something I saw and I was excited for a minute, right? The soy boys of the EU were like, We will get rid of all of our tariffs if you will, America. We will bow to you, Trump. We will. There you go, Trump. Whatever you want, you get rid of the tariffs. We'll get rid of the tariffs. We'll wipe the slate clean. We'll get that fair trade that you wanted. We'll get that free trade that you wanted. No country's going to involve themselves between our two trades. I was excited. I was like, I am going to have to eat my words. I hate it when I have to eat my words. I hate it. I hate it when I have to come in here and tell you guys, look, I was wrong. It sucks. But Trump said no. And then I said, oh, I don't have to eat my words. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump. Trump said no, because we can do better. We can achieve better. We can achieve more. We are going to ensure that the protection of the American automotive industry is protected and provided. And so that way, Europe, the EU, will be buying more from America. So it's not just a matter of removing the tariffs, but he also wants to force the European countries to purchase from America at a higher rate, while also maintaining a tariff-free in both import and export on both countries. So he's pushing for a little bit more than what he had initially said. It does go slightly against what the art of the deal was, and the art of the deal is, of course, take the most extreme stance, and when they give it to you, that's it, right? And then you can play from there. And he got the most extreme stance, and now he's pushing for more. And so the tariff war with the EU still continues on. The tariff war with China still continues on. The tariff war with Canada still continues on. I believe Mexico is still being an issue. Are you in favor of this, or is this some kind of manipulation of the free market? It is a manipulation of the free market to demand that another country purchases more from another country, regardless of the quality, regardless of whatever country is being involved. Imagine if the EU were to flip that on us. Imagine if the EU were to say, no, we don't want fair trade. We don't want free trade. We want to ensure that our products are being purchased by your country and that you're purchasing less, or that we are purchasing less of yours. We would not be in favor of that. So I look at things and I take my home team out of this, right? I take the teams out of this. So I'm not in favor of this on a free trade, on a fair trade level, or anything else. You buy our cars now, American Pig. It's so on that level, no, I completely disagree with the stance. Trump is definitely pushing more for the nationalist economy. It goes right in line with what I've been telling you guys for a long time. Trump is, whether you agree or disagree with with national economics, right? That's what Trump is pushing. That's what's actually is coming. He is pushing to ensure that we have a robust, a strong economy that's built up and is going to be able to export more than it imports. And that's what he's doing with this EU trade. The benefits of that are that you have kind of a more robust economy. You have a lot more things being manufactured. Your economy now is less dependent upon the rest of the world. If you want to fight against globalism, that's a great way of doing it, right? You become reliant upon yourself, and you require that the globalists demand that you provide them with things, because then your country benefits from this, right? It's good on that measure. It's great on that measure. One other thing that needs to happen is our American dollar needs to crash on the world scale. Doesn't need to crash. Our economy doesn't need to crash, but the value of the U.S. dollar needs to crash on the world scale. That will really spool up the turbos, if you will, and build up the demand for our products from other countries. Because if it's cheaper from America, if we crash our dollar and we're similar or a little bit higher than China, people are going to want to see American products, because American products are higher quality than what we would get from China. So we are going to see, if we see that happen, along with these tariffs, along with the demand of a contract saying the next 10, 15, 20 years, or even the next 5 years of you will buy more products from us. We will import less of your products. You guys sign on to that. We will see a higher demand. The crash of the dollar will just exacerbate that idea. We will have a super strong economy. One problem I see with this is the fact that we are already getting near that full employment rate as a country. We're getting to the point where there are more jobs than people. And that's going to cause a huge issue when it comes to either A, we're going to have to greatly increase artificial intelligence, increase the the capacity in which we can produce products, which is going to hurt people in the long run because people suck at adapting. We've seen this time and time again. We're going to see the demands for minimum wage go up. We're going to see a lot of issues come from this. The Democrats, especially the socialist Democrats, they're going to be able to find leverage within that. They will see some growth within that specific market of politics. So AI is going to go up. We're going to see a higher demand for that. We're going to see a higher demand for wages and everything else. And there's also going to be markets that are going to be falling off because they're not going to be able to provide as much as one of the more robust economies. Yes, I agree. Wages should rise naturally. But the problem is that wages will not rise at the rate at which Democrats want. And so then their demand for it to raise up at a higher rate. We've already seen this with the $15 minimum wage being demanded, while the minimum wage is like $8, $9. So they already want to blow it out. And that demand is only going to get worse and worse as time goes on. And we will see it continue. My argument was then, now, and forever will be that the government shouldn't be involved in the transactions between two consensual people. No minimum wage is fine. Allow somebody to make some money rather than make no money. Yeah, I'm in favor of cutting regulations. That's something that you and I and everyone else here should be in agreement with. Cut the regulations, get rid of the government. The government doesn't need to tell companies how to survive. And that was actually, if you guys were listening to me call in on Swamp Fox Radio 3 Saturdays ago, that was one of our topics that we were talking about, was the government regulation and how that should be structured. Do not regulate the internet. Exactly. Completely agree. And that was one of the ideas, was should the government regulate or should the government advise? And I think that the government should advise. We all have gone down to different food stores, different restaurants, and we've seen where on the outside they say, oh, for cleanliness, they got an A. Cleanliness, they got a B. Cleanliness, they got an F. That same thing can be provided for all the different types of markets that we have. And the government can say, look, this is a safety A. This is a company that cares about their employees. They want to provide a safe work environment for their employees to have great benefits. Bam, slap it on them. Here's a new company. The company doesn't provide that much. Company gets an F. But they don't regulate it. They don't say, hey, you don't meet the standards. They just say, here's our standards. You didn't meet it. You met it. Here's your grade. Now the people get to decide if they want that. No, I want to live. and I've struggled to find a good sound reasoning as to why the government shouldn't be advising at most. The government should advise, and that should be all that they are. Hey guys, we think that this is wrong. I agree with you. That's wrong. People shouldn't be killing themselves with fentanyl. People should not be killing themselves on drugs that are extremely catastrophic to the body, even on their first time use. People should not be using fentanyl. Well, we're going to ban fentanyl. Well, that didn't solve it. That didn't solve anything. People are still dying. You made it illegal. No change. Good job, government. Now, if you advise us and you're like, hey, don't do fentanyl, and you're like, all right, well, I need drugs. Well, here's the government. Hey guys, this is a drug manufacturing company. They provide you with heroin. They provide you with meth. They provide you with coke. They provide you with marijuana. They provide you with whatever drug that you want. And it's going to be safe. It's going to be clean. It's going to be exactly what you expect whenever you hit that bong or whatever it is. All right, so it's safer. Now is upon the consumer to say, this is something I want to put in my body or not. Government says, I wouldn't recommend you doing meth. I wouldn't recommend you doing coke. I wouldn't recommend you, even if they said marijuana, I don't care. Wouldn't recommend you doing this. Why not? Well, here's the studies. This is what happens with you. All right. I agree. I shouldn't do that. I don't do that. Boom. Ban alcohol. Yes, tweakers and junkies would still be tweakers and junkies. Absolutely 100% agree. But then you're not criminalizing somebody for making bad decisions. You're just telling them, hey, you suck. You suck. Leave my wine alone. And that's all the government should say. Hey, this entity sucks. This corporation sucks. This person sucks. This sucks. But they're not doing anything to hurt another person. and then we're safe. We're safe. There's no violence being committed, and that's the way it should be happening. The other thing, I agree with don't tell me what to put in my body as long as there isn't a tax-funded healthcare. Yes, absolutely 100% agree. Get the government out of the healthcare. Get them out of everything. Get them out of things that are not constitutional at a maximum or at a minimum. And then if we want to cut more from that, then we can cut more from that. That's a limitation on their powers. They don't get to go above. They have to stop there. And if they want to do less, they can do less. That'd be fantastic. I also, Boogie, are we streaming it live tonight, or is it going to be pre-recorded? We are currently working something up. I may be on a discourse of common type, and so I'm excited for that. We will be doing that tonight, whether it's live or if I'm down. I'm down for live. Throw me down with the live, man. I'm practicing for radio, of course. No, it's always a good time. We can do it at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. tonight, we'll do it live. You guys want to check in Common Discourse. I'll be going live with the Boogie Meister himself. I'm going to be bringing the Aussie and the American. Be a fantastic time. Make sure you guys tune in for that. If you guys haven't followed them on Twitter, if you haven't followed them on Periscope, make sure you guys do that. The Common Discourse. And, of course, follow Boogie Bumper if you haven't already. If you have somehow missed out on the Aussie from Down Under who doesn't like Outback. Life, liberty, in the pursuit of beard oil. Liberty. It's Liberty now. We've changed that. So, but yeah, the other story that I wanted to talk to you guys about, 7 p.m. Eastern. Yes, exactly. Liberty. Was the monkeying this up. Don't monkey this up. I'm, of course, referring to when Democrats have said this for years, and it was fine, it was okay, and then now we had a Republican say it, hey, don't monkey this up by electing a socialist, by electing the socialist agenda. That's so racist of him. How dare he use a term that has been used time and time again by the likes of we had Chuck Schumer, we had President Obama, we had Bill Clinton, we had, I said Chuck Schumer already, we had Turtle Boy. Why am I blanking on names today? Oh, I'm so out of this. Republican, Mitch McConnell. We had Mitch McConnell again. All right, perfect. Appreciate it, Boogie. We'll see you tonight. We had Mitch McConnell saying it. We've had a lot of people say this. We've had it also on the news shows. Everywhere and anywhere, we have seen them say, don't monkey this up, in reference to people messing up a situation, whether it was a political election, whether it was monkeying up healthcare, whether it was monkeying up a specific department of government or a corporation. But for some reason, whenever you attribute monkeying it up with the socialist agenda, now you also are attributing it to the person who is espousing those socialistic views, and that, therefore, you are now a racist. So it's amazing the way that they're trying to conflate this as a racist view. And so we've seen a kind of a pushback in where the right is now, the conservatives, the MAGA people, the Republicans, they are coming out and they're just nonstop with saying, I'm going to monkey this up. Let's monkey this up, monkey this, monkey that, monkey. And the left, just the hysteria, mind blown. Everybody's a racist. Everybody's a Nazi. Everybody's a transphobe. Everybody's, yada, yada, yada. Whoa. We need to have some form of civility coming back from the left in which they can say, hey, maybe we look at the context of how the situation occurred before we go off on our hysterical tyrants. If you guys follow us on Facebook, on one of my pages, the Liberty in the South, I want to be your monkey wrench. If you guys follow me on Liberty in the South, it's a Facebook group. We recently had a discussion covering this topic. And it was amazing to me. Anyone who came out and said, what does it mean, monkey this up? It just means mess this up. That's all that means. I will pull up the actual Google definition. So the Google definition is, it went straight to DeSantis and everything else. Well, if you go by Urban Dictionary, it does have that. Wow, Google is like silent. I looked it up on Google just to verify again. What up, Sin-Soaked? I looked it up the other day, and it was just, don't mess this up. Monkey this up means to get into the internals, mess up how things are functioning, how it's all properly running. So monkeying it up was always been Google does. You're right with that. So monkey with Merriam-Webster definition, it's an informal term to handle or play with something in a careless way, to monkey around with. I told you not to monkey with the lawnmower. It's not a racially driven thing. It's not a matter of we're saying anyone who's black and is a socialist is now somehow a monkey, right? It is that common. Rather than looking at the ideas, rather than looking at the abstract, they say, look, even though he's a socialist, he's a black man, therefore it's a monkey then. And that's the problem, right? Is we would rather try to find racism. We would rather try to find hate, find a reason to discredit the other side rather than having actual informed discussions. Should we monkey up this country by pushing socialism? No, we should not. We have seen time and time again where socialism is not a system which allows for a country to thrive, to innovate, to continue to grow. We've seen that socialism has killed over 100 million people in the last 100 years, but that's for some reason a forgotten fact or a not a well-known fact. We ignore that socialism inherently survives off the backs of the working to provide to those who don't. And we ignore all of that. And we just expect that the human condition will no longer survive as long as the government runs in a socialistic manner. Or, as what I saw the other day, a libertarian socialist, libsock, versus a libcat. Exactly right, Bean. And so having some civility about this, having some understanding of the context, he was absolutely right in saying what he was saying, right? Don't monkey this up by pushing a socialist. Don't help elect another socialist when we already have one stupid one from New York, Cortez, who just thinks that money's going to grow on trees, going to provide to everyone, and she's going to be able to fund all the programs that she wants to, and is not going to hurt the economy or hurt the people within this country. They're not sophisticated at all. And also, on top of that, the same man, let me pull up my Twitter. He said something to the likes of healthcare is a right. This is how educated, how smart, how informed these members or these potential members of Congress or candidates for Congress really are. Andrew Gillum tweeted, healthcare is a right. So I want to expand on this a little bit. We've had the discussions many a time. Ms. Kasha, welcome in. We've had the discussion many a times. What is a right? What is a right? What is not a right? What is a right? A right is something that you intrinsically have by being born. By being born, does that mean that you get to control how another acts? No. But when you have a right, I have a right to speak. You would have to take action to stop me from being able to speak. I have a right to defend myself. You'd have to take action to prevent me from defending myself. I have the freedom to own property. You would have to take my property to stop me from having that right. I have a right to travel. I can walk freely. You would have to stop me from traveling to prevent me from having my rights. Healthcare. cannot be a right. Was considered a positive right. A positive right is a right that is afforded at the expense of another. It wouldn't matter if government if it didn't cost if the healthcare overall didn't cost really anything. If it costed 5 cents, it would cost too much. It would not be constitutional to begin with. But on top of that, it's the ideology behind this, right? So the healthcare is not a right on the grounds of it requires another person to provide something to you. So when you have this, and we look at places like Puerto Rico determined that healthcare was a right. They created a right out of thin air, and they determined that healthcare was a right. Now, because of the funding for the healthcare went up, they said, nay, we have to stop it. We have to stop the growth. They applied a ceiling to how much could be spent on healthcare. When they provided that ceiling, doctors saw a cut in their money. The janitors saw a cut in their money. The administrators, everybody who worked within the healthcare industry lost some incentive to continue working. Some of them quit and changed changed fields. You lost doctors there, and others came to America. So the free market was better than a socialized market in that aspect. Now, what has happened in Puerto Rico is you still have some doctors. You still have some people that enjoy providing the service of healthcare. And so they remain. But the problem is that they're not making money. I'll get to that, MBK. Absolutely. They're not making money. So there's no incentive for them to continue on striving and providing more. So they do the bare minimum in return for the bare minimum in return. The lines have grown in wait times. The quality of the healthcare has dropped. People are in drastic and catastrophic situations now because they've determined that somehow healthcare became a right. Now, how do we make a solution? Now, healthcare is not in America is not something that is free. Healthcare is not something that is unregulated. Healthcare is not something that is free from government or control. It is entirely regulated and ran monolithically by Congress. Now, when it comes to this, right, Congress has determined that where you can purchase your goods from, how you can purchase your goods, who is allowed to sell you these goods, who is allowed to, all the transactions before it even gets to you, how those transactions are happening. When you limit how many people you can purchase from, you're allowing those singular corporations, those producers, to increase their cost because now there's less competition. So if you open up the lines, the state lines, or even the country lines for purchasing products for healthcare, you will see the prices drop down. With competition, there's two changes that always happen. The quality of your goods go up and the prices of your goods go down. So you're hurting the corporations by having more competition. They have to strive in order to provide more. So you can do that on just the providing of the products for healthcare. When it comes to providing healthcare, what a lot of these hospitals are doing, because they're protected by the government, is they don't tell you how much a service is going to cost. They will not tell you. Why is that? Because they have this giant golden book where even the administrators themselves don't know the cost. They don't know how much it's going to cost for you to have a child. They don't know how much it's going to cost for you to have a Band-Aid. They don't know any of that. Because if they knew that, they would be able to tell you, but they don't. Because it's a discussion between the insurance companies and them. That's it. So you, the consumer, are left out in the dark. So let's open up the lines of transparency, get rid of the laws there, and then we can now choose on a hospital that's going to tell you, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. And this is what we're going to barter with the insurance company. The insurance company is going to barter back with us. This is the maximum it will be. Sweet. Now I know I can compete with the different hospitals, and I can determine where I'm going to go when my wife gets pregnant and how we're going to have our child. We can have that discussion, and we can go within the market in order to find the best service for the best cost for us. We get to make that decision. Other issues that come up within the healthcare industry is the regulations on the quality of how things are provided. So it's not so much the timeline that's being provided, but is the quality of, you have to have these kinds of air filters, you have to have this kind of equipment, you have to have this, that, and the other. And so these are seen as a phantom tax, if you will. So every couple of years, they'll change up the equipment that's required in order to maintain the spaces within these healthcare providers. And so what that does is that says, hey, you were a private organization. You were an organization that's providing healthcare to people, and now you have to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 onto changing equipment that was just fine 6 days ago. Right? There's a huge monumental issue with that. If it was fine 6 days ago, why is it wrong today? Why do I have to change something today? You can talk about the detriment of that, and you can weigh those out. But that would be where, going back to the government being an advisor, not a regulator, that would be providing a better service for people. Look, this is when they updated this equipment. If you want to use the service, use the service. If you don't want to use the service, don't use the service. Right? Allow the people some transparency. Allow them to know what is actually going on. That would be better in the long run. Other fixes to healthcare, allow for different companies to we're seeing a startup of companies where they provide services for cash. They won't take insurance, they won't take credit. They will just, you go in, you get a small minor boo-boo, you go in, you get a couple stitches, you get maybe an infection in your finger. They provide you with the antibiotics, you pay cash, you get what you need, and then you go on about your day. They're able to do it for cheaper because of all the regulations that aren't being tied to it. But of course, the government doesn't like its competition, and so they're working to minimize these, keep the traffic down on those areas. But that is inherently what competition will do. Competition will find a way, and the government will stand in that way every single time. So there's many different things that can be done within the healthcare industry in order to open it up for more competition. Competition will never steer the people wrong. You'll never have 1,000 companies trying to provide you with one good, and you end up coming out on the shitty end of the deal. Yes, absolutely, we should allow competition. You will never see where, if you had 100 companies sitting in front of you, and they're all saying, we want to feed you this meal, we want to feed you one meal. And if you looked at all 1,000 of those companies, at the end of the day, you can't go, it would be so much better if I just had one company doing this. It would be so much better if somebody were to say all 999 of these other companies are not allowed, and that one company would be better. Because that one company may be better today, but 1 year from now, another company will be better. We always have these different flux within any market. You always have one company that builds up to the top, and another company will beat them, and you'll just see this competing fight for the top, right? It's the king of the hill. When one king gets knocked down, that king is coming back. He's going to fight, and he's going to do whatever it is that he can, or he will fail trying. You will not get that in a government-funded entity. You will never get that because they're guaranteed. We can talk about the detriment of these different corporations or these different markets in which government has been involved with, and we can see their quality decline. We know that they're guaranteed their pay. We can see where with college, right? With colleges being funded directly by the government, and when the students attending these colleges are being funded with government money, government loans, we can see where over time, not only has the cost for the colleges gone up, but their censorship, their quality, the value of the people coming out of these colleges, it's been on a steady decline because they're guaranteed, they're promised the end. They don't have to work for it. You need to have competition in order to ensure that there's still hungry corporations, hungry entities out there striving to be better than their competitors. When you strive to be better than your competitor, your consumer wins. When your consumer wins, your consumer sends more consumers to you. Basic marketing. And the government stands in the way of that every single time. It's things like that which makes me a libertarian. Makes me look at the government and say, you can't provide anything to us better than what the free market could. You cannot provide anything better than the free market can. And so I don't want you to. I don't want you to take my tax dollars. I don't want you to take my paycheck that I earned and provide it to somebody else that didn't earn it. Because nobody went to work with me. Nobody went and built suppressors with me. Nobody built a 22 suppressor, a 5.56 suppressor, a 45 suppressor, a 9mm suppressor. No, none of those suppressors were built by anyone but my hands or by the hands of my coworkers. So I've earned that paycheck. So why would you take my paycheck and provide it to somebody else? And that's before we even get into welfare. That's just talking about just different entities that the government decides to provide to. If you're not willing to come in and do the work with me, why do you get some of the earnings from it? Nothing is being done. What do you mean nothing is being done? The government has been preventing anything from being done because the natural status of the government is to be slow and lethargic. Yeah. I mean, I've got a pretty sick video of the company I work for in our suppressors. They're magnificent, but it's the government stands in the way of competition. They stand in the way of growth, of innovation, of designs. We can even look at the FDA, right? Recently, the FDA has been looking at vapes, right? The electronic vapes. They've been saying, hey, this might not be safe for people, so we're going to ban a lot of these different companies. We're going to regulate which companies can. The companies have to send us this amount of liquid, and they have to provide us with this amount of money. We're going to test it. We're going to verify it. And then, 2 to 3 years later, if we determine that it's an acceptable product, we will allow the people to utilize this, right? So we now, if product is acceptable, right? You missed out on 3 years of being able to provide that good to people. So this strangles the companies that are trying to get into business, that are trying to provide a good to the people. So companies inherently don't want competition. It's the consumer that should want the competition. Companies don't want competition. Because when the competition comes, that means that they have more people to compete against. When you have more people to compete against, you will inherently lose. Welcome in, Dad. You will inherently lose consumers, right? If you have 5 companies providing to 100 million people, you can let's just generalize here and say each one gets 20 million. But now if you have 10, right, now each one gets only 10 million. Right? So they don't want the competition. But you, the consumer, you should want as many competitors as possible because then you're getting the best product that you can. And you know that because if they don't provide you a product you want, you will go to your competitor. How many people have a cell phone right now that they've swapped in the last 5, 10, 15 years? We've all swapped because we were not receiving a service that we were promised or a service that we found acceptable. One thing the government is better at providing: military. So yes, Dad. In some aspects, yes. So that comes with protecting, but I wouldn't say that that's a providing thing. That's a protection thing, and that's one of the big points that I've always made is the government's not there to provide; it's to protect, and so they protect the sovereignty. Is the quick gist of this all, right? They protect the sovereignty of the individual, they protect the sovereignty of the states, and they protect the sovereignty of the country. And that just basically means anyone who infringes upon me, a person, the state could step in. That's with the legal system. That's with law enforcement. That's with the judicial system. When the state is being bombarded by another state, then yes, right. The federal government or the states can get into the dispute with that. And then, of course, for the federal government providing a protection for the border, which is unconstitutional, but it needs to have an amendment, and also provide protection for the country. About the military, do you think the government should reduce the military spending or budget? So when it comes to military spending or budget, I think that we are involved in a lot of wars that we shouldn't be. We should be reducing the the amount of wars that we are in. We are in wars in about 13 countries right now. Those need to be reduced. We need to be really scrutinizing on countries that we go to war with. We need to be going back to the constitutionality of this and say that we do not go to war without congressional approval, something that's not been happening since the Second World War. But by reducing the amount of wars that we're in, the budget would be fine, right? Build back a military, build it up, allow it to be strong, allow it to protect us, and then basically the reduction would come just from out of necessity. Do we need so many foreign bases? Do we need so many foreign bases? We don't need nearly all of them, but we do need a large swath of them due to treaties that were made. These treaties were all constitutional treaties, treaties in which they have requested military bases be placed on their grounds, and that is to help them out, provide protections, and also enable them to import-export. The funding isn't just about wars. I agree with you. The funding is not just about wars, but the wars are a heavy burden on the budget. And that would be, I want to see us get back to the military that we need. And that means that we allocate less money to the wars, less money allocated to troops overseas, bring them home, especially if they're in the wartime state. And that will enable us. New high-tech equipment costs more to maintain. Yes. Biggest issue with military money is keeping up with maintenance. Yeah, that is a huge, I think. So there's three big aspects of what the military spending goes to. Maintenance, right? New equipment, which we'll tie those two together, right? New equipment. So for the military right now, for the Navy specifically, we're trying to pump out 2 to 3 submarines a year. We're trying to pump out a couple carriers. We're trying to pump out new destroyers. We're trying to pump out a large part of the fleet to build that up, to provide safety for free trade across the seas, provide protections and everything else. So new equipment and maintaining the old equipment. I'll get to your question in a minute, Heel. You have the issue of wartime. So the money being allocated in order to maintain troops in foreign lands or spent on dropping bombs, sending armaments, and everything else, those are part of attributed to wartime spending. That is a major contributor. And the last one is not personnel that is active duty, but is funding for administrative parts of the military. So that is your funding for specialized services, as well as funding for things such as not bonuses, but like retirements and whatnot. Those are another big one. So do you think the economy will crash under Trump, allowing a Dem socialist to rise to power? No, because they're only looking to go to be one member of the House of Representatives, so a branch of the government that has 235 people in it, right? So you're looking at less than 0.5% of congressional power being a Dem soak. It's really not enough in order to make a change. Yes, in a lot of ways, the military is underfunded, but I want to see that be allocated from other parts of where the military is being has their tax funding coming in from. So I would want to see more proper allocation within every bit of government spending. We see fraud, waste, and abuse occurring. Military is not an exception to that list. The military is certainly not. There is not a branch of the government that is not guilty of or a victim of fraud, waste, and abuse. And that is something that each and every American, regardless of if you agree with where the money is being allocated to, that is where we should be starting at. And that is holding our representatives accountable for the way that our money is being allocated. And I say our money because it is our money. It is not the government's money that they're spending. It is our money that they have taken from us. Yes, private businesses as well. Absolutely. So with private businesses, we can actually make a change by not utilizing those corporations when it is vocalized via the free press, via people. We can actually see that, and we can say, look, this corporation is a horrible corporation. Let's stop using it. Of course, inherently it gets politicized, and one side says we're going to keep funding them. The other side says we're not going to fund them. You have the battle. But that is something that the people have more power over, as opposed to the federal government, where they just say, we'll just jack up your taxes even more. There's that inherent, I don't want to call it violence, but that's the best term I can think of. There's that inherent violence that is committed with the federal government or with the government at all. And that is that they will get their money with or without your consent. If you don't consent to it and you don't pay your taxes, they will come after you. They will take you and throw you in a cage. That's not acceptable. That's not tolerable. And that's not for our safety. That's because they were greedy and they spend too much money, and they spend more than even what they are projected to take in. All these big tech companies get government subsidies, which is why there's no competition. I agree with you. I agree that a lot of the big tech companies, a lot of the big companies in this country have government subsidies. I'm against those. It's not upon the taxpayer dollars to ensure that these companies are surviving and thriving, right? There's a big quote that came in from the housing market and crash and other crashes that have happened in history. And they say, too big to fail. And I think, I want to say it was Jordan Peterson, and he was absolutely right. If it was Jordan Peterson, and he was absolutely right in saying that is the exact reverse of what the truth is. These companies are too big to prop up. They're too big to prop up. You don't prop them up, you allow them to fail, and more companies will come in and fill their shoes and provide that same product at a way that will be more worried about the future. Because a company that is not worried about the future, only worried about today, you don't need them. You want a company that is providing today to provide for tomorrow. All Google employees get free gyms, massages, laundry, and we are paying for it. Yes, through laundering of money, yes, we are paying for those through the government subsidies. Huge issue, absolutely. Dad, if you're still in here, I don't know if you've quit on me yet. No, you still are. I will be going live tonight, guys, on the Common Discourse, going on the Boogie Bumper Show, if you will. So make sure you guys tune in for that. That is 7 p.m. Eastern. So for you, Dad, I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in for that as well, Dad. How does the military make you money in return? Well, they provide protections, allowing us to. In the ideal world, the military is providing protections, ensuring that we remain safe, in order to maintain our free markets. 3 p.m. Yeah, 3 p.m. I still remember the time zone differences. It's so complicated. 4-hour time zone difference does, for some reason, throw me for a loop. But yeah, so I'll be going on that. Emphasis on ideal world. Yes. Well, MBK, you know me. I've plenty criticized on the actions of what our officials have determined where the government or where the military goes to. I will criticize right along with you and say a lot of the wars that we're involved with, a lot of the military actions are unjust and immoral in the pursuance of America's interests. But that's different from the idea of what it's supposed to be. And so there is that issue of, I think from an honest point, right? Let's look at the wars prior. Welcome in, Sharon. The wars prior to World War II all had congressional approval before we got in them, right? They had a declaration of war from Congress. Those wars, it was very difficult in order to scrutinize those wars as something horrible, egregious, reprehensible, not in America's interest, because there was a panel of people there that were determining this, right? There was a panel called the Panel of War, the Board of War. And they were the ones that were actually determining this. And they got rid of that because now we gave the power to one sole individual. And now we've seen where George Bush, President Obama, right, they've declared war against entities and against countries without congressional approval. And so giving that sole authority has definitely corrupted. From where and what we see, a bunch of stuff goes on behind the scenes. Yeah, that is true. I am not obviously privy to a lot of the military intelligence. So MBK, I hope that you would take my stance, point of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, and stand with me, and stand with the Constitution, and say we need to have Congress declaring war once again. The wonderful Mrs. Bearded Truth is home, and thank you. I appreciate it, BK. So with that, guys, now that the wife is home, I'm going to hop off here. So we know the couple things I got to fix up in here. Make sure it's all prim and proper for y'all. I appreciate you guys for joining in. We will be going live again tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Common Discourse. Follow them on Periscope. Follow them on Twitter. The Common Discourse. Make sure you guys are following them. 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll be going live with the Boogie Meister. So make sure you guys join in for that. And then also tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be going live. And we'll be covering things that have happened this weekend on. So it'll be a little more current event-ish. Yes. Oh, sorry. TCD tweet. Thank you. Love you too, Dad. And I appreciate you all. I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your Monday. Enjoy Labor Day. Hopefully, if you were not being laborious today, you at least thought about the labors that you're providing. Welcome in, Jake. So I hope you guys all have a great day. And I'll see you guys tonight, 7 p.m. And then tomorrow, again, here, 7 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night and stay safe.